It began, as most profound mysteries do, not with a revelation, but with a whisper. At the close of the 19th century, a man was listening to the sky. Nikola Tesla, already a visionary far ahead of his time, was tuning his instruments to capture the invisible language of the universe. In 1899, while experimenting with radio waves from his laboratory in Colorado Springs, Tesla recorded something extraordinary. Amid the crackle of the atmosphere and the predictable pulses of the Earth, he detected an irregular signal-strange, patterned echoes that seemed to originate from above. To Tesla, it was no natural phenomenon. He described it as an intelligent transmission, a deliberate sequence that defied randomness. He believed he had intercepted a message, not from our world, but from somewhere beyond. His peers dismissed it as error, interference, or even delusion. Yet what Tesla heard was unlike any known terrestrial broadcast. And here lies the first fracture in our understanding. If no human technology existed to send such signals in 1899, what was speaking back? Decades passed, and Tesla's claims slipped into the archives of eccentricity. But the echoes did not vanish. In the 1920s, our ADIO operators across Europe began encountering long-delayed echoes bursts of signals bouncing back with inexplicable delays, sometimes seconds after transmission, as if the messages had circled the globe more than once, or perhaps ricocheted off something unseen above Earth. Scientists puzzled over the phenomenon, proposing atmospheric anomalies or unusual ionospheric behavior. Yet none of the explanations fully satisfied the strangeness of these events. By the mid-20th century, the whispers evolved into something tangible. In 1954, newspapers across the United States reported on an extraordinary claim. An object of unknown origin had been detected in orbit around the Earth. At that time, no human nation had launched anything into space. The first artificial satellite, Sputnik, would not be launched until 1957. Yet, according to the reports, something was already up there. The U.S. Air Force and Navy were said to be tracking unidentified objects circling the Earth. One in particular drew attention. A massive, dark, tumbling shape, unlike anything that could have been constructed with the primitive rocketry of the time. It appeared and disappeared intermittently, as though it were toying with human observation. To the public, it became known as the Black Knight satellite. NASA eventually captured photographs of the object during its missions in the 1960s. Images revealed a strange, angular structure, far removed from the smooth, engineered lines of human spacecraft. It seemed almost jagged, like a shard of something ancient drifting silently in the void. Some dismissed it as space debris, a lost panel from a mission, or a fragment of a thermal blanket. Yet others insisted it was too large, too complex, and far too early to be explained away as human error. What unsettles researchers most is not simply its appearance, but its apparent antiquity. Orbital analyses suggested the object had been circling the Earth for centuries, perhaps even millennia. If true, this would place it in orbit long before the advent of telescopes, before modern science, even before the Industrial Revolution. How could such an artifact exist before humanity had even dreamed of leaving the ground? The mystery deepens further when we recall Tesla's enigmatic signals. Could it have been this same object transmitting its silent beacons back to Earth in 1899? If so, then the Black Knight is not merely a piece of inert machinery. It is active, observant, perhaps even communicative. Its signals, recorded sporadically throughout the 20th century, show a consistency that natural phenomena rarely possess. Skeptics have long attempted to dismantle the legend. They point to errors in media reporting, to the confusion of tracking multiple satellites, to the possibility of mundane explanations hidden beneath the layers of rumor. But no amount of dismissal erases the peculiar timing, that an object was spotted in orbit years before humanity placed one there, that signals were received decades before radio communication was common, and that images exist of something which defies simple categorization. What makes this story endure is not only its scientific impossibility, but its psychological weight. Humanity's relationship with the stars has always been defined by curiosity, by the assumption that space was an empty frontier waiting to be reached. Yet the Black Knight suggests something far more unsettling, that we were not the first to cross that threshold, that when we looked up for the first time with technology sharp enough to see, something was already looking back. And so the legend persists. Tesla's faint echoes, the unexplained orbital object, the haunting NASA photographs, all fragments of a puzzle that refuses to be solved. Whether artifact, alien sentinel, or simple mistake magnified by myth, it stands as a challenge to human understanding. For how do we reconcile an object that should not exist, and yet undeniably does? In the summer of 1899, Nikola Tesla stood in the thin air of Colorado Springs, surrounded by the mountains and silence of the high plains. He had left New York behind, carrying with him a vision of wireless energy that could leap across continents, lighting cities without wires, powering machines without fuel. But in his high-altitude laboratory, something unexpected began to unfold, something that would haunt Tesla for the rest of his life. Tesla's equipment was unlike anything the world had ever seen. Towering coils, copper wires, and vast grounding systems allowed him to generate electrical discharges of staggering intensity. Arcs leapt like lightning across the walls, thunder rolled inside the building, and the air itself seemed alive with static. Yet amid the controlled chaos, Tesla detected a faint rhythm, a series of pulses buried within the crackle of the ether. At first, he dismissed it as interference, perhaps natural atmospheric electricity, but the patterns repeated. They came in intervals too deliberate, too structured, to be random noise. In his own words, Tesla later confessed that what he heard seemed like a signal from another world. His notebooks described the sensation of listening to something, someone attempting to communicate. He believed he had intercepted signals not of this earth, and he became convinced that intelligent life beyond our planet had reached across the void to make contact. Skeptics of Tesla's time scoffed. The year was 1899, nearly a decade before Marconi's first transatlantic radio transmission. Radio astronomy did not exist. The very idea of extraterrestrial communication was ridiculed as science fiction. Yet Tesla's equipment was sensitive in ways others could not comprehend. Unlike the crude radio receivers of his contemporaries, Tesla's designs tapped directly into the natural electrical resonance of the Earth itself. He was listening not just to human transmissions, but to the deep heartbeat of the planet, and perhaps the echoes of something orbiting it. Later interpretations suggested that Tesla may have been picking up signals from Mars, a theory that captured headlines at the time. Newspapers ran sensational stories about the eccentric genius who had spoken with Martians. Tesla never denied it outright. To him, the universe was alive with intelligence, and Mars was simply the most plausible candidate. Yet even today, some researchers suggest he may have intercepted early signals from pulsars cosmic, beacons of rotating neutron stars, or even stray transmissions from experiments in wireless telegraphy bouncing across the ionosphere. But Tesla himself never wavered. He was certain that the rhythms he captured bore the unmistakable signature of deliberate design. What makes this story unsettling is not only Tesla's conviction, but his timing. The signals appeared at the turn of the 20th century, decades before anyone else seriously entertained the idea of SETI searching for extraterrestrial intelligence. Tesla was, in many ways, the first to listen to the stars with intent. And unlike modern scientists who rely on vast radio arrays and digital analysis, Tesla had nothing but his coils, his amplifiers, and his intuition. That intuition, however, was extraordinary. His Colorado experiments took a toll on his mind and health. He worked in isolation, often refusing food or rest, consumed by the need to understand what he had uncovered. In the solitude of the Rockies, he became convinced that humanity was not alone. His writings from the period show a mixture of awe and dread, an awareness that if intelligent forces were reaching out, their intentions were unknowable. Were they benign, offering friendship to a young civilization still fumbling with electricity? Or were they simply observing, cold and detached, as humans might observe an ant colony? Tesla's claims followed him for the rest of his career. In 1937, nearly 4 decades after Colorado Springs, he spoke again of having received extraterrestrial signals. He insisted that interplanetary communication would soon become reality, that humanity must prepare for a new epoch of contact. By then, Tesla was regarded as a brilliant but eccentric figure, a man half forgotten by the scientific establishment. Yet he remained unshaken in his belief. What lingers is the unsettling thought that Tesla may have glimpsed something no one else was ready to see. His coils, primitive by modern standards, opened a fleeting window into a hidden layer of the cosmos. Perhaps he caught a whisper of pulsars, long before their discovery in the 1960s. Or perhaps he intercepted something else, something technological, intelligent, circling above the Earth in an era when human flight itself was barely possible. Whatever the truth, Tesla's mysterious signals remain one of the strangest footnotes in the history of science. They blur the line between genius and obsession, discovery and delusion. To some, they are evidence of a mind too eager to see patterns in noise. To others, they are the first tentative brush with a reality larger than our own. And so, beneath the storms of Colorado Springs, Nikola Tesla may have heard the first echo of a cosmic message, a rhythm not born of Earth, carrying across space and time, waiting for anyone to listen. In the late 1920s, a group of radio operators began reporting something that defied the very laws of physics. As they sent out their transmissions, voices came back, not immediately, but with an eerie delay. These echoes didn't arrive milliseconds later, as normal radio bounces would. They returned several seconds after the transmission, as though the signal had traveled a vast, impossible distance before returning to Earth. They called them long-delayed echoes, or LDEs. At first, many dismissed them as a technical glitch, a quirk of faulty equipment. But the phenomenon was soon reported by multiple operators, across different countries, with different machines, under different conditions. In one chilling account, a Norwegian engineer named Jürgen Hals documented echoes returning 3, sometimes even 15 seconds after he had sent them. He wasn't alone. Independent scientists confirmed similar delays, publishing reports that baffled the scientific world. The problem was simple but unsettling. Physics didn't have an answer. Radio waves travel at the speed of light. Even bouncing between Earth and the Moon, an echo would return in just over 2 seconds. These echoes lingered far longer, as if the signal had ventured into the void, been intercepted, and then deliberately sent back. In the following decades, theories multiplied. Some suggested a natural cause. Perhaps the signals were trapped in a plasma cloud high in the ionosphere, bouncing endlessly before breaking free. Others whispered about vast, hidden satellites orbiting Earth long before Sputnik ever left the ground. Arthur Clarke himself once remarked that LDEs felt like a message hidden within static, waiting to be deciphered. And then came the darker speculation. What if the voices weren't bouncing at all? What if they were echoes from time itself? A transmission leaking into some unknown fold in reality, only to circle back seconds later, distorted but still audible. Some physicists entertained the possibility that these signals brushed against other dimensions, sliding between our world and another before returning like ghostly fingerprints of an unseen universe. But the most chilling possibility? That we were never alone on the channel. Some researchers suggested the echoes were not reflections, but replies. The delayed voices were like someone answering back, mimicking the operator's words, sending them home to prove a point. We are here. We are listening. The mystery deepened when some operators claimed that the LDEs didn't just return their own messages. On rare occasions, fragments of transmissions were altered or came back scrambled strange patterns and breaks that resembled deliberate interference. To skeptics, it was coincidence, a trick of noise and static. To believers, it was a sign of communication, an intelligence using our own words as a doorway. Governments took notice. During the Cold War, whispers circulated of intelligence agencies secretly tracking these echoes, trying to decode hidden messages. Were the Soviets experimenting with a new kind of space communication? Or was something else watching us, using the simplest, most universal method possible, our own technology, to make contact? Even today, the phenomenon remains unsolved. Modern explanations have attempted to root the echoes in natural science. Irregularities in the magnetosphere, signal diffraction across deep plasma structures, or interference from unknown atmospheric layers. But none of these theories have ever fully accounted for the sheer length of the delay up to 20 seconds in some reports. No natural barrier or known reflection could explain such a massive detour. Long-delayed echoes remain one of the strangest footnotes in the history of science. They are neither proven hoax nor fully explained anomaly. They exist in a liminal space, too consistent to dismiss, too mysterious to solve. Perhaps they are simply quirks of nature, waiting for an answer just beyond the horizon of current science. Or perhaps, as some suggest, they are evidence of something far older, far stranger, silently circling our world, watching, waiting, and sometimes speaking back. The Cold War was an age defined by shadows. A war fought not with open battles, but with whispers, suspicion, and the haunting silence between two superpowers staring across the void. Every radar ping, every coded transmission, every glimmer in the night sky was loaded with paranoia. And it was in this climate of fear that the legend of the Black Knight satellite was reborn. In the late 1950s, humanity's reach had only just extended beyond the atmosphere. The Soviet Union had shocked the world with Sputnik in 1957, and soon after, the United States answered with its own satellites. But tracking stations on both sides began to notice something peculiar, objects that were not supposed to be there. Large, dark, silent shapes slipping through Earth's orbit, sometimes in retrograde paths, moving against the natural flow of human-launched machines. Reports began to circulate, quiet at first, whispered among engineers and scientists sworn to secrecy. Both Americans and Soviets, though locked in fierce rivalry, faced the same mystery, a presence overhead they could not explain. It was neither rocket debris nor a known satellite. It was something else. Then, in 1960, Time magazine ignited the world's imagination. The publication reported on a mysterious dark satellite orbiting Earth, discovered by the U.S. Navy's tracking systems. According to their findings, it was a massive object, weighing several tons, circling silently above. Official explanations were swift and dismissive. The object, they claimed, was nothing more than a piece of space debris, perhaps from a failed satellite launch. But the details did not fit so neatly. This dark satellite did not behave like discarded machinery. Its orbit was unstable, erratic, even deliberate. And at the height of Cold War paranoia, the very idea that the enemy might have placed something in orbit without detection sent shivers through military circles. If it was not Soviet, and it was not American, then whose was it? What made the story even more unsettling was the secrecy around it. NASA and the Pentagon quickly dismissed the reports, burying the event beneath a wave of technical jargon and reassurances. But the very act of dismissal only fueled suspicion. Because in the Cold War, denial often meant truth, a truth too dangerous to admit. The public was left with fragments, headlines that hinted at a shadow in orbit, expert comments laced with evasions, and the gnawing sense that something extraordinary had been seen, and then swiftly hidden. And as governments tightened their grip on information, conspiracy took root in the gaps. For many, this was no mere coincidence. The timing was too perfect. The dawn of the space race, the height of Cold War secrecy, and suddenly an unknown satellite loomed overhead. Some argued it was proof of an ancient presence, watching as humanity took its first fragile steps into the stars. Others saw it as evidence of a superior technology, operating outside the boundaries of both nations' capabilities. What truly made the Black Knight story endure, however, was not just the object itself, but the atmosphere in which it appeared. It was a time when both superpowers were willing to gamble everything for dominance. Misinformation was a weapon, silence was strategy, and truth was often the first casualty. In such a world, a dark satellite became more than a mystery. It became a symbol. To the fearful, it was a foreign weapon. To the dreamers, it was proof we were not alone. And to the governments locked in rivalry, it was something that could not be explained, and therefore something that must never be acknowledged. The Cold War was an age of secrets, and in those secrets, legends thrive. The Black Knight became part of the mythology of the space age, half satellite, half phantom, all shadow. Whether it was debris, deception, or something more, the mystery refused to vanish. Because sometimes, the more you try to bury a story, the more power it gathers. By the 1960s, the Black Knight was no longer just a technical anomaly. It had become a specter hanging over the Cold War sky, silent, dark, and utterly unknown. In December of 1998, the crew of the Space Shuttle Endeavour embarked on mission STS-88, the very first assembly flight of the International Space Station. It was supposed to be remembered for engineering triumphs and historic cooperation in orbit. Instead, it became forever shadowed by a series of photographs that ignited one of the most enduring mysteries in modern space history. Amid the controlled routine of work in orbit, astronauts captured images of something strange, a jagged, black, angular object drifting silently against the backdrop of Earth. It didn't resemble a satellite, nor the familiar forms of space junk catalogued by NASA. Its sharp edges, its twisting contours, even its silhouette seemed deliberate, like a fragment of technology forged with purpose. When the photographs surfaced, NASA was quick to explain. The object, they said, was nothing more than a lost thermal blanket, an insulating sheet that had slipped away during one of the astronauts' spacewalks. For the space agency, it was a minor mishap with a simple explanation. But for those who studied the photographs, the thermal blanket story collapsed under its own weight. The images didn't look like a blanket. They didn't look like fabric at all. The object had depth, bulk, geometry. It cast shadows. It appeared to have surfaces angled as though designed, not accidental. To many, the explanation sounded less like science and more like damage control. Once released, the photographs took on a life of their own. They were posted, copied, and circulated across the earliest online forums, where digital communities dissected every pixel. In those first days of internet conspiracy culture, the images became fuel for countless theories. Some said it was proof of an alien probe, quietly observing Earth from the shadows of orbit. Others argued it was the legendary Black Knight satellite, a mysterious object that believers claimed had been circling our planet for thousands of years, hidden in plain sight until technology finally allowed us to glimpse it. What fueled the intrigue was not just what the photographs revealed, but what they concealed. NASA's official archive initially contained the images, but for reasons never clearly explained, they disappeared for a time. Broken links and vanishing files only intensified suspicion. To believers, it looked like the perfect pattern of a cover-up: release, deny, erase. The more NASA explained, the less people seemed to believe. There was also the strangeness of timing. The shuttle mission was historic, yet its moment of glory was overshadowed almost immediately by the photographs. Every news outlet should have been celebrating the construction of the International Space Station. Instead, an obscure sequence of pictures dominated discussions in the margins of public consciousness. The object itself was unlike any known piece of man-made debris. Space junk catalogs had no record of it, no launch history to trace its origin. In space, debris tends to follow predictable paths, yet this object appeared almost staged, drifting perfectly into view as though meant to be photographed. For skeptics, coincidence felt unsatisfying. For believers, it was destiny. Over time, the photographs became a sort of Rorschach test for human imagination. Those who trusted NASA saw little more than a scrap of insulation. Those who distrusted authority saw a monument to hidden truth. Each camp drew lines that never crossed. The images themselves remained unchanged, yet their meaning multiplied endlessly. What's remarkable is how these photographs, taken on a single mission, evolved into an enduring legend. They resurfaced again and again, reinterpreted for new audiences as technology advanced. Early JPEGs gave way to high-resolution scans, each revealing details that believers seized upon. Digital artists sharpened and enhanced the photos, pulling patterns from noise, insisting that they saw panels, wings, and even antenna-like structures. NASA never wavered. It was debris, they said, and nothing more. But the very calmness of their response seemed, to some, like theater. Why dismiss so quickly? Why not allow for further study, especially when the object had captured the imagination of millions? Silence, ironically, spoke louder than words. As the years passed, the legend of the Black Knight satellite fused inseparably with the STS-88 photographs. Ancient astronaut theorists pointed to supposed signals detected as early as the 1960s, claiming the object had been transmitting data long before NASA's cameras caught it. Others linked the images to older myths of watchers in the sky, blending folklore with pixels into a narrative that refused to die. Even today, those photographs remain among the most shared images in the strange archive of space mysteries. They carry with them the weight of wonder and doubt, of official denial and public suspicion. They remind us of how fragile our trust is when explanations feel too simple, and how quickly a single image can spiral into legend. The STS-88 mission marked a milestone for humanity, but in its shadow, the photographs etched a different milestone, one that belonged not to science, but to mystery. They live on as proof, or as illusion, depending on where you stand. But either way, they endure. Because in the silence of space, a photograph can say more than words ever will. For as long as humanity has looked upward, the night sky has not only been a canvas of stars, but also a stage for myths, omens, and warnings. Long before the term Black Knight satellite entered modern conspiracy lore, ancient civilizations were already whispering about watchers from the heavens' mysterious entities who observed humanity from above, silent, eternal, and beyond comprehension. Among the Native American tribes of North America, star legends formed the backbone of entire cultural worldviews. The Lakota, for example, speak of the Star People, mysterious visitors who descended from the sky to guide, test, or sometimes warn humanity. They told stories of star guardians beings who positioned themselves high above the earth, keeping watch over human affairs from the shadows of the cosmos. These accounts were not mere bedtime stories. They were treated as sacred truths, passed down through oral traditions for generations. When seen through the lens of modern mystery, the imagery of silent observers above the earth aligns almost eerily with the idea of a satellite that has been circling our planet for thousands of years. Further south, in Mesoamerica, the Maya and the Aztec civilizations built entire temples and calendars around their celestial knowledge. But hidden within their codices are tales of messengers from the stars who rested above the world and returned in cycles to check on the progress of humankind. Some anthropologists have dismissed these references as poetic symbolism, metaphors for planetary cycles. Yet the precision with which these cultures tracked the skies suggests that their star messengers may not have been allegories at all, but descriptions of something witnessed, something real. Even older are the fragments left behind by the Sumerians, humanity's first great civilization. Among their clay tablets, written in cuneiform over 5,000 years ago, are curious references to beings called the Apkallu, who brought forbidden knowledge to mankind, said to be sent from the heavens by the gods. While mainstream historians treat these as myths, others argue that they resemble accounts of an ancient monitoring system, a program designed to oversee human development. When those tablets speak of messengers stationed in the heavens, recording the deeds of men, it raises the unsettling possibility that the Sumerians were not imagining divine beings at all, but describing something mechanical, something permanent, something watching. The Black Knight legend becomes even more compelling when we trace these echoes across cultures separated by oceans and millennia. Aboriginal Australians tell of sky beings who never set foot on Earth, but hovered above, casting shadows at night, recording the actions of men and women. In ancient China, myths describe the Tianxia, heavenly envoys who maintained a constant vigil over the Middle Kingdom, not as fleeting visitors, but as presences fixed in the sky. Even in Norse mythology, tales of Odin's ravens, Hugin and Munin, who flew around the world gathering information and reporting back, take on new meaning when reframed as allegory for cosmic surveillance. What binds these stories together is their remarkable consistency. From the Fertile Crescent to the Great Plains, from the jungles of Mesoamerica to the fjords of Scandinavia, humanity has preserved a nearly identical idea, that we are, and have always been, under watch. Not by gods residing in distant heavens, but by silent guardians stationed far closer, hovering above the earth, enduring beyond the rise and fall of empires. Some researchers point to the 13,000-year timeline often attached to the Black Knight legend, and note that it aligns almost suspiciously with the end of the last ice age, when human civilization began its long climb toward agriculture, architecture, and writing. If there truly were a satellite orbiting Earth since that time, it would mean that the myths of watchers, guardians, and messengers are not products of imagination, but distorted memories of an actual presence, one that has remained in orbit, generation after generation, silently collecting the story of mankind. This is where speculation collides with the undeniable. Ancient cultures had no reason to invent narratives of surveillance from the sky. The stars themselves provided navigation, timekeeping, and religious awe. And yet they went further, embedding in their myths an unmistakable theme. Humanity's journey was not unwitnessed. Someone or something was always there, watching. Modern science offers no confirmation of such a satellite in ancient orbit, but the patterns are difficult to ignore. When the same story arises independently in cultures with no contact across vast stretches of geography and time, it speaks to something more than coincidence. Whether we call them star guardians, heavenly messengers, or the silent watcher in the sky, these ancient echoes resonate with unnerving clarity today. If the Black Knight is real, then it has never been a modern mystery. It is perhaps humanity's oldest companion, an ever-present shadow above our heads, patient and unyielding as civilizations rise, flourish, and crumble beneath its gaze. For as long as human beings have stared at the stars, we have imagined ourselves as explorers. We send machines to worlds we will never touch, coded with instructions in the hope that someone, somewhere, might read them. In 1977, Voyager 1 carried a golden record etched with the sounds of our planet, destined to drift for billions of years. But what if the gesture wasn't ours first? What if Earth itself has already been under the quiet watch of someone else's machine? An artifact not of human hands, but of a mind far older, far stranger, and perhaps far more advanced. Some theorists point to the concept of an ancient probe, a device placed here long before the first pyramid stone was lifted, before the first wheel was carved. A technology beyond time. Unlike our satellites, it would not decay in mere decades. It would be engineered to last millennia, to withstand cosmic dust, solar winds, tectonic shifts, perhaps even extinction events. Such an object wouldn't need to shine or call attention to itself. It would simply watch, collect, and wait. This idea is not as far-fetched as it seems. The American astronomer Ronald Bracewell once proposed the possibility of interstellar probes designed for observation rather than communication. Known as Bracewell probes, they would serve as ambassadors, placed strategically in systems of interest. If human scientists can conceive of such a possibility with 20th century tools, could a civilization millions of years older not have already done it here? Our own history of exploration mirrors this logic. When the Voyager probes left Earth, they carried not just data, but a message. We were here. Pioneer's plaque was etched with a map of pulsars pointing back to our sun, a cosmic return address. These probes are our seeds cast into the dark ocean of space. To imagine that another intelligence might have scattered similar seeds only billions of years earlier is simply to extend our own logic outward. The challenge, however, lies in evidence. Some researchers have speculated about out-of-place artifacts, mysterious objects found in geological layers that should not contain them. While many are explained away as hoaxes or natural formations, a few linger in scientific debate. Could fragments of metals, alloys, or even signals buried deep in the electromagnetic background be remnants of such technology? And if so, how advanced would such a machine have to be to outlast time itself? The answer may be unsettling. A probe designed to endure would not resemble our fragile crafts of aluminum and gold plating. It might be self-repairing, with nanostructures capable of rebuilding damaged parts. It might draw energy from the Earth's magnetic field, or from the sun's endless stream of radiation. It would not sleep or corrode, but it would simply persist. Imagine an object older than humanity itself, quietly hidden on the far side of the moon, or resting silently beneath our oceans, monitoring, recording, perhaps even transmitting. Yet there is another theory, one that shifts the gaze back on ourselves. Could this technology beyond time be human in origin, but forgotten? Our timeline is patchy, and vast stretches of human prehistory remain obscured. Myths of lost civilizations, Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu speak of great cultures swallowed by catastrophe. Most scholars dismiss these as symbolic allegories, but what if fragments of truth remain? Could an ancient human culture have reached technological heights, only to collapse under disaster, leaving behind artifacts mistaken as anomalies or dismissed entirely? In this view, the probe would not be alien, but ancestral, a reminder that progress is not always linear, that human history may be a cycle of rising and falling, building and erasing. If a device of such sophistication exists, it may be the last whisper of a civilization whose name we will never know. And yet, a third possibility is even more haunting: the automated ark. Imagine a civilization, knowing its extinction is inevitable, programming machines to carry its legacy forward, not just to observe, but to guide, not just to record, but to shape. What if Earth itself is under the quiet hand of such a machine, one designed not only to watch us, but to ensure we follow a certain path? To think that our evolution, our leaps in knowledge, our sudden sparks of innovation, could be nudged along by an invisible caretaker is to rewrite the story of humanity as something less than independent. It suggests we are not just observed, we are curated. From probes to lost civilizations to arcs of survival, these theories converge on a single unsettling truth: technology can outlive its makers. Just as our Voyagers may still wander long after our species has vanished, so too could another's artifact be drifting in our orbit, cloaked in time's dust. Whether alien, human, or something in between, such a machine would serve as proof that intelligence leaves shadows long after its light has gone out. If we have sent our own messengers into the void, can we be certain that we are the first? Or are we only answering a call that was placed long before we were here to listen? For decades, the story of space has been presented as a clean, linear narrative. Rockets launched, astronauts walked, satellites orbit. Yet beneath the official accounts lies a far murkier history. Records that vanish, transcripts with curious redactions, grainy footage mysteriously missing from archives. Whenever someone digs too deep, they seem to find not clarity, but silence. The cover-up theories begin with what we already know. NASA, like any vast institution, has its layers of classified material files stamped for official use only, or sealed under national security. On the surface, this is routine. Sensitive technology, Cold War rivalries, the need to protect aerospace advancements. But the pattern extends far beyond technical secrecy. Reports from astronauts speaking of strange lights, voices cut from communication logs, and tapes said to be erased always by accident. The convenient disappearance of evidence is what fuels suspicion. Take the missing Apollo 11 tapes. The world was told they were simply misplaced, perhaps overwritten in an era before digital permanence. Yet these weren't casual recordings. They were the highest quality transmissions from humanity's first steps on the moon. To lose them is almost unthinkable. And still, the explanation remains that they were recycled, casually reused for other projects. The result is an absence that feels deliberate, an absence that whispers of editing reality itself. Then there are the whistleblowers. Individuals who, over the years, risked careers and in some cases, their safety by speaking out. Some claimed that encounters in orbit were documented, but hidden under layers of classification. Others suggested entire missions were scrubbed from history, launched quietly, returning with data too destabilizing for the public. One technician described airbrushing anomalies out of lunar photographs before they could ever be archived. He insisted it was standard procedure, not conspiracy, just policy, and order followed without question. But why? Why remove, redact, deny? The cover-up theories suggest the answer lies not in protecting secrets from rival nations, but from us, the global public. Imagine what it would mean if the familiar story of space was not complete. If astronauts had seen objects they could not identify, if missions had returned with knowledge that contradicted everything we believed about the universe. Governments already balancing fragile economies and fragile trust might see disclosure as too dangerous, too destabilizing. Better to dismiss it all as space junk than admit the possibility of something more. Consider the Cold War backdrop. In an era where paranoia was policy, even the hint of unexplained phenomena became a matter of national defense. To admit the unknown was to admit vulnerability. And in that climate, denial was safer than revelation. Anything unexplained could be classified as a potential threat, locked away in filing cabinets never meant to be opened. Yet the most compelling evidence of suppression lies not in what was said, but in what wasn't. A retired astronaut recalls being told to stick to the script during debriefings. Researchers cite documents where entire pages are redacted, black ink blotting out not just words, but context. And time after time, when freedom of information requests are filed, the response comes back the same: no relevant documents found, as if entire chapters of space history never existed at all. To the skeptic, all of this is nothing more than administrative error, overzealous classification, or human incompetence. To the believer, it is confirmation, proof that someone, somewhere, decided the truth was too dangerous to share. Whether it was anomalies on the moon, unidentified craft in orbit, or evidence that challenged our very place in the cosmos, the end result was the same: silence. The cover-up theories do not demand that one believe in extraterrestrials or grand conspiracies. Instead, they highlight a pattern: suppression not as an accident, but as a policy. A deliberate shaping of history, one where the extraordinary is erased until only the ordinary remains. And perhaps this is the true reason the theories endure. Because every missing tape, every censored page, every no comment fuels the sense that behind the official story lies another story, one we were never meant to hear. The mystery of the Black Knight has refused to fade into history. Decades after those first whispers from NASA communications and strange photographs from the shuttle missions, there are still those who insist that the satellite continues to drift silently above our heads, cloaked not by advanced technology, but by simple indifference and the vastness of space itself. In the modern age, when governments and corporations track thousands of satellites with precision, it would seem impossible for an unidentified object to linger in Earth's orbit undetected. And yet, a growing number of satellite trackers, amateur astronomers, armed with little more than backyard telescopes, radio equipment, and persistence claim they have picked up signals and unusual movements that cannot be easily explained. These independent researchers, working outside the polished networks of official agencies, have kept the story alive. Throughout the early 2000s, several forums dedicated to orbital tracking lit up with discussions of an irregular object, one that did not match the expected paths of known satellites or space debris. Some reported a large, tumbling shape with erratic reflections, too steady to be a fragment, too unpredictable to be controlled. The object was never officially catalogued, yet sightings continued sporadically, always sparking the same debate. Was this the legendary Black Knight, or just another misidentified relic of the space race? Even NASA's own orbital debris experts admit that space is littered with forgotten machines, discarded rocket stages, and fragments from collisions. Any one of them could be mistaken for something mysterious. But the Black Knight has always carried with it a sense of design, a suggestion of intention. Unlike a shattered piece of metal or a dead satellite, its movements, at least in the claims of observers, seem too deliberate, too calculated, as if it is following rules we do not yet understand. As the years passed, the story evolved with technology. Radio enthusiasts claimed to intercept faint, irregular signals from polar orbits, transmissions that came and went without explanation. Some matched these signals with patterns first detected in the 1960s, when reports of unusual long-delayed radio echoes fueled speculation that an artificial object might be bouncing transmissions back to Earth after mysterious pauses. Was it the same source, active across generations? Or just coincidence wrapped in legend? By the 2010s, as commercial space ventures multiplied, interest in the Black Knight found new life online. High-resolution images of Earth from private satellites occasionally showed odd shapes or shadows in orbit, feeding forums and conspiracy circles with fuel for debate. Skeptics dismissed them as glitches, lens flares, or misidentified horror. Believers saw them as proof that the Black Knight was still there, waiting, watching, but always just beyond official recognition. The conversation today reflects our age of information overload. For every claim of a sighting, there are experts offering quick rebuttals, dismantling the evidence with technical precision. And yet, no amount of debunking seems to extinguish the myth. In some ways, the Black Knight has become less about the object itself and more about what it represents. The possibility that something ancient and unknown could be hiding in plain sight, orbiting above us while we continue our daily lives oblivious. This persistence of belief says something profound about human nature. We live in a world where satellites map every street corner, where space agencies announce each new launch with precision and transparency, and where entire databases catalog the thousands of pieces of debris circling our planet. Still, in that meticulous record-keeping, there remain gaps, objects not yet identified, anomalies left unclassified. It is in those gaps that the Black Knight thrives. For those who dedicate themselves to tracking the night sky, the mystery has become a kind of ritual. Night after night, they scan the heavens, listening for faint signals, watching for unexplained movements. Some do it out of genuine curiosity, others for the thrill of chasing a legend. Whatever their reasons, they are part of a tradition that stretches back more than half a century, a human fascination with the possibility that something not of this earth is circling above us, unseen by the very institutions designed to keep watch. Whether the Black Knight is a real, physical satellite or simply a myth that has evolved with each generation, its presence in the cultural imagination is undeniable. It hovers not just in orbit, but in the borderlands between skepticism and belief, science and folklore, astronomy and conspiracy. And perhaps that is why it continues to endure. Because even in an age where information is endless and explanations are readily available, we crave the idea that not everything has been uncovered. Had even in the bright, data-driven clarity of the modern world, there might still be shadows moving silently overhead, reminders that the unknown is never truly banished, only waiting in silence for us to notice. The story of Nikola Tesla's mysterious signals has echoed through more than a century of science, myth, and speculation. For some, it was nothing more than radiostatic, a man ahead of his time, misinterpreting the natural noise of the universe. For others, it was a glimpse into something far larger, far stranger, a fleeting moment when humanity brushed against the unknown. Tesla himself never retreated from what he believed. He carried the conviction that the voice of intelligence had reached him across the silent void of space. Long after his first experiment, he would write of his certainty that he had touched something alive in the darkness, that the Earth was not alone. His notes carried the weight of that belief, not frantic scribbles of a dreamer, but the deliberate records of a man who thought he had pierced the veil of the cosmos. The irony is that modern science eventually discovered what Tesla could not have known. The radio sky is filled with bursts, pulses, and transmission signals, both natural and artificial, that stretch across unimaginable distances. Pulsars beat with the rhythm of collapsing stars. Quasars roar with the fury of galaxies in formation. And hidden among the storms of cosmic static, researchers have identified whispers of patterns that defy explanation. Tesla's experiment was primitive by today's standards, but what he reported fits eerily into phenomena we still struggle to classify. Strange repeating signals. Bursts that appear structured. Rhythms that feel less like nature and more like language. Whether he stumbled into the cosmic heartbeat of a pulsar or something entirely different remains a question without resolution. Yet what makes Tesla's claim so enduring is not simply the signal itself, it is the timing. He heard it at the very dawn of our technological awakening, when humanity was just beginning to stretch its voice into the heavens. We had not yet sent our greetings into space. We had not yet built the great radio telescopes that now sweep the skies. In 1899, Earth was silent. If something spoke then, why? Why to him? And why in that moment? There is a haunting symmetry in the thought. Perhaps the universe does not wait for us to be ready. Perhaps it chooses moments, individuals, messengers, and lets the rest of us piece together the fragments left behind. Tesla may have been chosen by coincidence, or perhaps by design. Today, vast networks of satellites and observatories listen ceaselessly for a signal that will confirm what he believed. Billions of dollars, decades of searching, entire disciplines of science, all devoted to a question that Tesla dared to answer in a Colorado night more than a century ago. And still, nothing definitive has come. The silence remains heavy and infinite. But silence can be deceptive. A pause does not mean the conversation is over. It may simply mean we have not yet learned how to listen. Tesla himself understood this. His life was defined by transmissions messages that leapt invisibly across space, carrying information faster and farther than anyone thought possible. He believed that if the universe was alive with intelligence, it would find ways to reach us again. And perhaps it already has. Each time we detect an unexplained burst from the depths of the cosmos, each time a repeating signal baffles astronomers, each time data brushes against the edge of comprehension, Tesla's ghost lingers in the room. His story is no longer just about one man's claim. It is about the idea that we are forever on the brink of contact, balanced between certainty and wonder. The final transmission may not have arrived yet. It may come tomorrow. It may come in 100 years. Or it may have already passed, lost in the noise of a world too busy to notice. That is the danger of the cosmos. It does not wait. It does not repeat. It does not explain. It offers only moments. And once they are gone, they cannot be retrieved. Tesla's signal remains one of those moments unresolved, unproven, yet impossible to dismiss. It is a reminder that discovery is not always about certainty. Sometimes it is about the courage to declare what you have heard, even when the world is not ready to believe you. And so we are left with the echo of Tesla's conviction. A century later, we are still straining our ears, still building greater instruments, still hoping for the voice that will cut through the static. Perhaps one day it will come again, clear and undeniable, with no room left for doubt. And when it does, we will remember the man who first claimed to hear it, the man who believed the universe had already said, "Hello." If the signal returns, will we be ready to listen?